I'd say that's 20 or 30 seconds. Why don't we go ahead and get started? Thank you for joining today's webinar on quality and wireless, and then also a sneak peek into Wireless Window, which is a developmental effort that's been going on at BroadSky for a year now. And Bo's going to take the lead on explaining that. If anyone was wondering, yes, that is Bo. Sorry, yes, that is Bo in front of the Game of Thrones replica in Dallas, Texas. That was at the AT&T's headquarters. AT&T owns HBO, and Bo got his picture taken on the throne. Nerdverse, there you have it. Okay, so setting that aside, let's get started. So today we're going to be talking about quality, and we're going to be talking about some of the keys. You know, quality is interesting, but it's boring. We're going to bring this a little bit more into the context of why does quality lead to MRR? Because really, we're in this for MRR, we're in this for commissions. And so we want to talk about how does this all lead up to a commission check showing up through your master agent every month that you can rely on, and you really don't have to worry about it very much. I find that BroadSky tends to delve into quality measures and technical aspects a lot. We're very proud of our engineering here, but that can get repetitive, and really it's about revenues in and then bills getting paid and then something left over for ourselves. And so we're going to focus more on that today than the quality side. So a little bit about BroadSky, and you know, why do we say we can deliver this, and how long have we been doing it? We've been doing it since 2003. So this is 17 years now in this industry that we've been providing wireless connectivity. We started off in satellite, obviously, because in 2003 that's what wireless was. And then we moved into the cellular networks on 3G and then LTE as they became available. So over the last, 8 years, we've been deploying routers that connect to the cell phone towers that drive business communications. It's our only line of business. We don't have a competing product. I had this conversation with someone again yesterday. All we want to do is provide high quality wireless connectivity to your solution. Beyond that, we do not have an opinion. We've interacted with every SD-WAN, every VoIP, every firewall, or every major brand firewall anyway, in existence. And we're not here to tell you what you should recommend beyond the wireless side. We have very clear opinions on how the wireless should work properly, but we're not interested in giving advice on your solution, nor do we have a competing product to your solution, taking it back to sort of the dollar piece. We just want to make the wireless work and make all the rest of your applications run smoother. Some objective measures of success on this. We've been on the Inc. 5000 list now 3 years in a row. We'll be on again in 2020. Have we seen a bit of a slowdown with COVID? We have. It hasn't been 80%, I can tell you that. It's maybe 20% off. The demand for this is still strong, particularly in the temporary deployment, education markets, and people who are sending their workers home. What we're going to see in that arena is a lot of people got sent home with MiFi devices and really cheap signal acquisition devices. They're running into their quality problems right now of it doesn't get good signal, it doesn't get good speeds, it doesn't interact properly with corporate applications, and it's not particularly secure. And now the snapback is coming on, we need to deploy this on a quality solution, not just the first thing we could lay our hands on. So that's happening in the market right now. We were an MSP 501 Channel Futures Award winner in 2019, which we're very proud of. And then additional resources we can bring to bear that are unique in the market. We can do a white glove install on this through TechLink Services, which is our sister company. TechLink is a nationwide field install services company that installs digital signage and phone systems and does cable runs, et cetera, et cetera. That company is also out of Bend, Oregon. That's our sister company, and obviously we speak with them every day. They handle all of our nationwide install work. So if you need to deploy 500 of these in 2 weeks, and you just don't have the feet on the street to do that, we can deploy that resource. Or if your customer is the type that likes white glove and wants a truck rolling up and a person walking out and installing their service, we can make that happen. It is not a requirement. It is not a requirement. It is an option that sets us apart and sets you apart from others. And then finally, and particularly germane to this conversation, TechLink Solutions Development is an app development company. This is the company that under Bo's leadership has powered the Wireless Window single portal access that we're going to talk about a little bit more at the end. And so that's sort of the BroadSky family of companies, if you will. Between the three, we're looking at, it's a 100 employee company that's been around for a long time. TechLink has been on the fastest growing list as well, I think 4 years in a row. So a lot of success coming out of Bend, Oregon, as an objective measure in the marketplace of, is this been well received? And these are the things we point to say, yeah, it has. So here's our today's agenda. We're just going to talk about some ideal solution modeling and rolling up to where do these enterprise deployments that work across the country and generate significant MRR come from? What do they really look like? And then some actual MRC commissions and case studies for examples of hopefully head-turning accounts that we've deployed, that you look at those and go, okay, if I had 3 of those, that would set me and my family up nicely for the next 15 years. And then some of the quality measures that go into that, obviously. Once we establish why we're doing this from a revenue perspective, then what supports that? What allows me to sell this, essentially sell it and forget it? Because that's the whole point, is the wireless should be boring. It's very exciting if you do it wrong, but it's exciting in the wrong way. What we want is for the wireless to be a boring, I can count on it. This is not what I'm worried about today. What I'm worried about is finding new customers and increasing value within my customer base. And then Bo's going to get into wireless window and how it supports that. So today's wireless, if you've heard this before, I apologize for repeating myself. This is a new idea. Today's wireless is fast. It's fast. If you're thinking that it runs maybe 8-10 meg down and you can't run your VoIP on it, that was true in maybe 2013. That is no longer the case. We realize, and the drivers in the market right now are UCaaS, CCaaS, SD-WAN. Those are the big three. And to power these, you need, particularly SD-WAN, you need a second circuit that is going to be able, so you can do traffic splitting. And a lot of times that second circuit is a DSL line. So, and DSL just isn't fast enough. There's no the upload capability in DSL is atrocious. Plus copper plant is disappearing. And so DSL really is a disappearing, fading technology. And then UCaaS, CCaaS, once we move to those 2 techs, you can run them on a single circuit, but what happens if you lose that circuit? The entire business disappears. And with COVID, we're seeing this more and more. We're sending everybody home. If they were tipping on, should we move this to the cloud or not? Now they are moving it to the cloud because they have to access it from home. And so this is accelerating trends that have been in place for years. But it still comes down to that single circuit at corporate. If it gets hit by a backhoe or it gets flooded, they all of a sudden lose all capability. As one example, I'm rolling out a nationwide massage chain right now, sort of a massage facial, one of those nice things. It's a 400 location account, and they're moving towards a different point of sale in a cloud-based point of sale system and a cloud-based appointment system. I was talking to a guy this morning, said, well, last month, CenturyLink, where I am, went down twice. And during that period of time, we couldn't take appointments and we couldn't run credit cards. We were not in business. Actually, it was 2 months ago before the COVID thing. They're moving to this system and they're installing a wireless backup for that. So in those instances, that won't happen. So that's just sort of a real world example. Why would we do this? Because if we lose our internet for any reason, outage, cut, flood, we don't have a business anymore. And so we're protecting all the other assets that you're deploying out in the field and protecting the end users' businesses. This is sort of a shot of the difference between a good deployment and a bad deployment. And so here's kind of what happens on a failed deployment or on a do-it-yourself deployment. And I have an anecdote. I'll give the anecdote first. We took over a retail chain about a year and a half ago now that has 800 locations across the country. They had been working on this for a year, trying to deploy their own devices, and they bought good gear. They bought good gear from Cradlepoint, but they couldn't make it go, bottom line. And they're not they're a talented company, but they just couldn't make it go because wireless is hard if you're trying to do it across the country in a uniform manner. And so their end result was basically what you're seeing on the left-hand side. They had poor or no signal at 30% of the locations. Their data usage was out of control because there was uncontrolled data usage. So they didn't have performance, and yet it was costing too much money, which is the worst of both worlds. Then they didn't have insight into performance in the sense of, why don't I have good signal? How do I fix the signal? Why can't I do what I need to do? End users were frustrated, and the rollout stalled. And this was a corporate priority in 2019 that didn't go. It's a corporate priority in 2018 that didn't go. We took it over in January of 2019, and we had it resolved by March, I want to say. So it took us 2 months to right size it, make it go. The way we did that is we got into each router, we set them up properly, configured them properly, downloaded the proper firmware, made sure it was on the right carrier. If it wasn't on the right carrier, and this is the key, we sent out new SIM cards and put it on the right carrier. We advised on how to place them to get the best signal on site. And when it was all said and done, they ended up with what we're having on the right-hand side. They had good signal at every location. They have one bill, one support. It supports now all their corporate applications. And they have one data pool to pull from. So the way BroadSky does this, we assign you the best carrier at each location, but then we put it all into one pool. And finally, they have insight and control into usage real time. So now they can see how much am I using right now. And there's two different ways you can do that. You can either, right now, there's two different ways. You can get into the control portal from the manufacturer, either PepLink or Cradlepoint, and you can see how much usage you have. We can also send you carrier reports on a weekly basis showing actual billing records coming off, and then Wireless Window aggregates that into two different places. So the control you have on this, and even almost setting aside money, people want control. They can't stand the concept that I have a SIM card out there that's using, I don't know how much usage, racking up, I don't know how much for bill, and I'll just be surprised next month. People can't stand that. And what happens is they stop rollouts when they lose control. If they want to deploy it at 100 sites, they get to 10, and then they quit because it's not working. 3 of the 10 sites don't work, and one of them had an overage already, and I don't want to multiply that problem times 10, so I'm just going to stop now. This is why deployments with some of our competitors or do-it-yourself deployments fail, is in the first 10, the error rates start creeping up, and it doesn't lead to rolling out for the rest of the company, which means it doesn't lead to MRR, and it doesn't lead to being able to sell new opportunities because you're trying to fix the opportunities sold 2 months ago, 4 months ago, 6 months ago. And that's the BroadSky difference that we're talking about. So rubber meets the road. Can this be lucrative, and what does this lead to if we deploy it correctly? We just kind of picked out some marquee accounts here that, and I spoke to one of them, Nationwide Retail. They bill, pardon me, that's a different retail customer, but they're billing $80,000 a month. There's a nationwide pizza chain that uses us for backup at every location. They're billing over $100,000 a month, and then construction companies use us all the time. They use us for different reasons because it's difficult to get circuits in. This is more of a bring your own broadband concept. So they just bring our circuit in, and then they move it from site to site to site, keeping it in that same pool and reusing the same technology. And then finally, anyone who has exposure to power, either wind, oil, gas, solar, they have hundreds and hundreds of sites that need monitoring. And so we pulled a couple of those accounts out just to get a flavor. So if you look at these 5 case studies, if you will, this represents the top 3 categories for BroadSky, which would be multi-site backup, 1, construction, 2, power as a larger heading, 3. That's hopefully eye-turning numbers where you say, yeah, if I had 3 of those, I can do the math, and that would make a difference for me. And all of these accounts were brought by sales partners working through master agents. BroadSky does not have a direct sales force. Everything runs through the channel, so there's no conflict here. We definitely have the ability to support this, and the quality measures that we're about to talk about are what leads to these. And going back to what I said before, none of these people deployed all the sites at once. They all started with 10. And the first 10 worked, and then they roll out the next 10. And then when the first 20 worked, then they start ordering in batches, 50 at a time, 100 at a time, 200 at a time. But everybody tests it first. And so the key is, how do we ensure quality for the first 10 or 20, giving them confidence to start rolling out en masse? So let's talk about how we do that. We call it the gold standard. The components of the gold standard are as follows. 1, we pick the best carrier for every site. 2, we deploy on high quality gear. There is cheap signal acquisition gear out there, MiFi devices, very cheap routers, something called a category 4 router. And some of these are they're manufactured by brand names like Cradlepoint or PepLink or Sierra Wireless, but they're the 2015 model. And they've become very cheap because demand has dropped off for them and people just clearing out inventory. So you can deploy on, air quotes, a cradle point, but it's a 5-year-old cradle point and it's not up to the modern standard. So it doesn't work right if you don't deploy on modern technology. It doesn't work right if you don't have the right carrier at every location. BroadSky maps every location to get the best carrier at each site. And then we include a second SIM card in every deployment called dual SIMs, so that we have the option of using 2 carriers at each site. And then finally, when we move into once we move into production mode, we monitor their data usage on a monthly basis against their demand. And we can move that pool up and down on a monthly basis. So they don't have too much data because they're paying for gigs they don't need, or they're getting overages, which means that they're paying a higher cost for their usage. And so we have insight into that and control over that and the ability to change it in month, which is a huge difference from everyone else for what we do. That's what you add up to make this all go. And then it's powered by the BroadSky tech support team, who is there to make sure that it interacts with their UCAS, their CCAS, their SD-WAN, and their VoIP, so that all their corporate applications are working, their IPsec VPN tunnels are up and running, and the customer is happy. And that leads the first 10, and then the next 10, and then the next 50, and then the next 100, and we end up with that 100K MRC deployment. And then, of course, we've been paying commissions since 2003, so you have that track record of, at the end of the day, it shows up on, personal, moving the ball forward personally, let's say it like that. Okay, like we don't want to sit and grovel about money, but on the other hand, we are here to generate revenues in the easiest manner possible, and picking vendors who can support that. So I guess I'm not afraid to talk about that. Finally, at the bottom, 0 CapEx options. BroadSky will actually supply this all in a no CapEx model. So it's all OpEx. We supply the router, we kit it, and we send it out, and the customer's not writing a check for equipment. They're also not worrying about warranty, and they're not worrying about repair. Break fix is our responsibility. Equipment, that's what I'm looking for. Equipment choosing is our responsibility, kitting is our responsibility, warranty is our responsibility, and replacement is our responsibility. So if it breaks in the field, we take care of it. So this becomes a very low touch solution that we're putting out in the field. I want to dig in on one point that we did, one case study from the field. It's called carrier change, and just the difference between 2 carriers in the field. And this isn't an example of any one carrier performing poorly, because all the carriers have excellent speeds in certain locations and all the carriers have poor speeds in other locations. But if you go to their carrier map and their coverage map, they all look absolutely uniform. Works great everywhere. So how do you actually tell which one is the best? So this is an example of something we actually did. We sent out, as I mentioned before, we sent out every router with 2 SIM cards in it. Now we put it on site, and we had it on AT&T first. And the speeds we got were, by wireless standards, decent. We got 16 meg down, if you can see on the left-hand side. Download speeds were 16 meg, upload 4.8, latency 108 milliseconds, and then speed test 2, 17, speed test 3, 16. So right in that 16, 17 range. That's okay. And a lot of other companies would have just left it like that. But T-Mobile was the other SIM card in the device. And so we tested it on that as well. And the results are obvious. They're eye-popping. They're 3x faster. Download went to 45 meg, 50 meg, and 60 meg. So average about 52. Upload doubled. So download tripled, upload doubled, and latency dropped by 30%. Same router, same location, 2 different carriers. This is the difference between an average result and an outstanding result in the wireless world, is just being able to do this. And then the quality measures are on the bottom, what you're seeing there. We don't have to get into what they mean, but RSSI, SINR, RSRP, and RSRQ are the 4 different quality measures for a wireless device. It's not just about signal strength. SINR stands for signal to noise ratio, and that's how much interference you're bringing in. So you could have a very strong signal with a lot of interference. That slows down speeds. And the other 3 are quality measures Bo could explain better than I. But the point is we can see all of these and do some things to either move the router or see what kind of quality we're getting, which translates to speed, which translates to performance, which translates to a happy customer. So everyone wants, and it didn't cost more to change it over. So 50 meg down is a lot better than 17 meg down. The customer has to be happier with a faster one. This is a different example. In the event that we want to put an antenna on the roof, now it's not required. And I want to make that really clear. It's not required. But we are living in the world of signal acquisition and a wireless waveform. So wireless signal is stronger on the outside of the building than it is on the inside of the building because buildings block wireless signal. This is an example of us putting an antenna up and the before and after on that. So again, you can see on the speed test on this where we were getting about 22 meg down, which is not a bad result at all. And a lot of people would have been satisfied with that. This particular customer wanted to go fast. So when we put the antenna up on the outside of the building, speeds more than doubled, going from 22 down to 54 down. And we tested both carriers. AT&T didn't prove as much, but we had the ability to test both. So in this particular case, Verizon was the clear winner. The larger summary point here, BroadSky maximizes speed at every location. It's not just about getting some signal, it's about getting the best signal. And that's kind of the BroadSky engineering difference. We dig into it and we get the speed that's available in every case. That was just baseline speeds. There are 3 flavors of wireless now. On the high end, it's category 6, category 18, and then actual bandwidth aggregation. A lot of companies won't talk about this because they don't know how to do it and they don't know the difference. We've been delving into this now for 2 years, Bo and his team and James, our director of engineering, and his team. What I was showing you was category 6 download speeds. Category 6 means you take 2 frequencies and bond them together from the same carrier. But the next level up from that is category 18, which is bonding 4 frequencies from the same carrier and turning that into one usable download channel. So this technology is about a year old now. You need to deploy a higher end router. You need to know how to kit it. You need to know how to solve for it properly to get all 4 of those frequencies. But when you do, the speeds can become eye-popping. We're starting to see 100 meg downloads, not every time, but many times when you deploy these Cat 18 routers, because they're taking advantage of all the available frequency from the tower. So if you're customers who want the fastest possible speed, or they need a backup circuit to back up a fiber circuit that's running at say 500 meg, a 20 meg circuit, that's a big drop off, but a 100 meg circuit is a very good backup to a 500 meg fiber circuit. And that's what Cat 18 delivers. This is all over a single SIM. Upping the ante one more time, we can even move into bandwidth aggregation. This is our badass product, and what it does is bonds multiple signals from different carriers. We can bond 2 carrier SIMs, or we can bond 4 carrier SIMs into one pipe. Speeds on this right now are in the 125 to 150 range, and there's a governor being taken off some of the new gear that's coming off where we're going to lose that. We're going to lose that 150 thing, and now we're going to start talking about combining 4 separate 100 meg connections into one 400 meg download channel. We've been deploying this technology now for 2 years. We are one of the very few companies that know how to do it. It requires a little bit of extra engineering, and it definitely costs more. The data doesn't cost more, but the upfront costs are higher. And talk to your channel manager about the difference in cost. But generally speaking, you're looking at maybe $1,500 to $3,000 up front versus nothing up front because the gear is quite a bit more expensive. But at the same time, the speeds on this are eye-popping. And these are the things that we're delivering in the market that I don't want to say nobody can do it because that gets, someone might challenge me on that, but very, very few companies know how to do this. And we've been at this since the gear was invented. We were one of the first companies to have it on a test bed, and we're one of the first companies to deploy it in the field. I'll say it like that. So here's how, going back to the Gig LTE, this is taking 4 separate frequencies and combining it. Here's how it kind of works in an expanded capacity. It's called multiple in, multiple out, MIMO. And what you're doing is on a Cat 6, you take 2 and you bond them. And then on a Cat 18 or a Gigabit LTE, you take 4 and bond them. It expands the capacity just on a raw speed basis, and it's also the underlying foundation for 5G. You could almost argue that this is 5G Lite. Some of the carriers are actually promoting this as 5G Lite. If you look at AT&T's 5GE, that's a 4-way MIMO bonding scheme. It's being introduced as sort of definitely the stepping stone to 5G, and the speeds that we're seeing in the market in that 100 to 125 down range are approaching 5G, although actual 5G millimeter wave, which is the next level coming out, theoretically is going to hit a gig down. That's still 2 to 3 years out. So if you want to be in that cutting edge, then Gigabit LTE using the Cat 18 routers is the place you want to be. One of the other advantages to Gigabit LTE and Cat 18 is not only are the speeds greater, but you can put more packets of information through each one. And so you can see how we can get 4 down, you know, we're in 4 lanes here instead of 2. So that moves faster. And then the next slide on this, oh, it didn't show on there. I'll just have to explain it. It also is 256 bits per packet versus 64 bits per packet, which is the QAM rate. So not only are you getting more speed, but you're getting more information on each download circuit. And so these are some of the actual speed tests in the field that we've achieved using Gigabit LTE. 125 meg down, 30 meg up, 42 millisecond latency. And then next test, 95 down, 29 down. This is a rare air one over here, but this is a 300 meg download. I think Bo grabbed off his phone in Los Angeles. This is an outlier, but these are the speeds that are coming in wireless. So kind of going back to an earlier comment, the days of 8 to 10 meg down and VoIP don't work are long over. We're moving into being the fastest circuit available. In fact, if you set your SD-WAN up to send traffic over fastest circuit, it ends up going over us a lot. So you want to be careful of that if that's not your intent. But supporting the concept that wireless is fast. Wireless interoperates with all your applications, and with the quality measures BroadSky brings in, you end up with happy customers at every location who continue to deploy and roll out, leading to high MRC and commissions that are noticeable. One of the other tools we do is actually site mapping and looking for the closest tower. BroadSky knows where the towers are, and this is not public-facing information. This is something that you have to buy a certain amount of volume from the carriers in order to have access to. The closest tower is not always the fastest tower. What we do is A, look to see what is the closest tower, of course, but then B, what has the cleanest shot between there. So if there's elevation between the tower and the customer, that's not going to work. We might point it to a different, go to a different carrier instead, which will actually outperform. Across the bottom, the carriers that we're working with, AT&T, Verizon, T-Mobile, but then also names that are probably less familiar to everybody, Bell, TELUS, and Rogers. These are the 3 Canadian cell phone carriers, and we have direct contracts with all 3. So if your customers are in Canada and they need to be on the same solution, on the same portal that works the same way, with the same speeds, we can help you with that. It costs a little more in Canada, but again, we're one of the few companies that has the ability to deliver that overall solution in North America. Mexico is coming. We thought we had a solution there, and then it sort of petered out, and now we're refiring up on coming to a solution on that. But continental United States, Alaska, Hawaii, Canada, we can definitely support that across the board. This is not future. This is not vaporware. This is something that is available today. So AT&T, Verizon, T-Mobile, Sprint are merging, obviously. So those are the carriers that we're accessing to deliver this technology across the United States. It's not the ads for the thing that's going to be here 2 years from now. It's something that's available to your customer base as we speak. It's been tested and it works, and we could order it up and get it out to your customer site in 2 days. So this is something that is definitely available. The last piece of the puzzle, once we have this installed, how do we have the right data plan? Here's what we want to avoid. We don't want to have not enough gigs, because then you go into overage, but also you don't want to throw so many gigs at it you don't get overage that you're paying for gigs you don't use. In either case, it's unprofitable. And then the third piece to that is you want to do some content filtering and some traffic shaping to make sure that you're not running gigs unnecessarily. And we have the ability to deliver that as well. You can put content filtering on all of our routers such that it only processes business traffic, and you can eliminate personal traffic. This almost goes back to security code selling long distance way back in the day. That's when I started. So we can eliminate streaming if you need to. We can eliminate gaming. We can eliminate adult. We can eliminate entertainment. And that brings the gigs down. We can also put locks on the Wi-Fi password if you need that. And we can lock to MAC addresses so that only devices on site that are authorized get onto our network, and casual use, guest use, people wandering in and deciding that they want to back up their iPhone, that doesn't go over us. It takes a little bit more planning, and it costs a little more to put content filtering on there, but I've seen accounts drop their usage 85% by putting content filtering on. This is particularly applicable to any guest Wi-Fi application or any kind of casual use or people wandering in and out and deciding to get on the internet. We want to be careful of that. BroadSky is odd in that we want to keep people's bills low so that they continue to roll out. We're not particularly interested in one location having a big bill in 1 month. That's what kills future deployments. And that's a theme that I'm running out through all of this, is we know what a multi-site deployment looks like successfully. It works, we know how much data we're using, and we're controlling usage. If we have those 3 elements in place, it continues to roll. That's an enterprise-grade solution versus a casual use, it didn't work out, I don't trust this, I'm not gonna keep going with it. And so in all things, that's what we're always going for. When we deploy a solution is how does this work on a continual rollout basis? How we do this is we actually monitor your data usage as it goes. So we have a data management team that is monitoring against usage at all times. We get the first week's carrier data, and then we apply a usage 7 days times 31 days equals projected usage against plan. You're under, you're fine. But if you're going to go over, we send a warning, and we send the warning in month, which means we have the ability to act on it. Either A, we're using data we don't want to use, or B, we need to upgrade our plan because it's more than we thought. But either way, this is a no surprise, in control solution for your end user. Most, if not all, carriers just don't do this. They let you go over, they send you a bill, and you deal with it. And what's sort of hidden within that is not only do you have the problem, say the month of June, but you don't get your overage bill until July, which means whatever problem you had in June, you had in July too. This leads to immense frustration for end users. They don't feel like they're in control of this. They get a bill, then they start asking to have it reduced, and it becomes this snarl that the sales partner has to get involved in and trying to negotiate a write down, and nobody's happy. The BroadSky way of doing this is warn, control, adjust, be happy, move on to the next month. And it's a profound difference in the customer experience when they know how much they're using and they have access to that. So to help support that, BroadSky has been working on because we're talking about control and insight obviously a lot. Performance is sort of like the ante just to get in the game. If it doesn't perform on site, then obviously that kills it. But even once it's in, we want to be able to see it and administer it easily. And this is a project we've been working on for a year. It's called Wireless Window, and it's been in development under Bo's team. And there's been a lot of progress made on this, and a lot of work has gone into it. And he has a chance to talk about it in a little bit more. So put your tech hat on. If you like bits and bytes, I've got bits and bytes for you. I'm going to introduce Bo Barker, who is our VP of Technology at BroadSky Networks, and he's going to speak to the Wireless Window product, which is in beta mode now and being production mode very soon, where all your clients will have access to it. Bo, take it away.
Awesome. Thanks, Tom. Appreciate it. So I guess the first thing to note here is that from the ground up, we built this platform from the ground up, and it's built on scalable and redundant microservices, microservices architecture. So that's a serverless environment, primarily hosted on AWS and all their availability regions. And then the other thing that we did, besides adding some cool stuff for monitoring and bill pay in there, is we designed it from the ground up to have our API open. So that means that clients or other companies can actually integrate into Wireless Window as well, and pull that data out into their platforms. So just kind of doing a run through here. Tom talked about our multi-carrier portfolio. So we have multiple carriers data that feeds into Wireless Window. So we're aggregating all that data information from diverse carriers in North America and bringing that all in. Regardless of where the site is, all of your sites would be combined into Wireless Window for device monitoring and alerting. And then, we hear a lot with the manufacturers portals, everybody has their different flavor. Cradlepoint has one, Peplink has one, Sierra. You go down the list, and most all the big players have a cloud management portal for their devices of varying functionality and ease of use. So our big focus was to make a platform that we could integrate multiple hardware vendors' cloud management into one single pane of glass. And there's long-term reasoning behind that, but part of that was also, the ability to submit things like trouble tickets and look at your bills and pay your bills. Those just aren't available in those hardware manufacturer portals. But through BroadSky, we've combined that all into one simplified, easy-to-use portal. And as Tom mentioned, this is our phase 1 of development. We're mapped out to phase 3 and 4 already with feature improvements, some AI and machine learning. So it's constantly evolving and highly scalable. We'll get into some of the screenshots of our test environment here in this next slide. So you do have full visibility from the dashboard. Basically, a graphical usage utilization chart. How many gigabytes are in your total pool, and what's remaining in the month for the bill cycle. So that's pretty important, for at-a-glance information. I can log into Wireless Window. I can see my total pool of data usage and all my devices, and how much data they have left. So if I do need to make those rate plan changes mid-month, which is sort of unique to BroadSky, then you can certainly have that intelligence to operate and go in and say, okay, I need to upgrade or downgrade my plan even. And then the device availability will show, we obviously have 8 devices in this test account. Some of those are offline intentionally to show that graphing here. And so you see device uptime, downtime, like I said, the billing, and then also trouble tickets. And so we have those displays of tickets in various states, and your trouble tickets can be submitted online. And that goes directly to our engineering support team, and they'll help you out. So below we can see the devices, and then we'll kind of drill into that a little bit more here in this next slide. So with this, we have, I'd mentioned the multiple carriers, multiple hardware manufacturers, all of that's getting aggregated into this single pane of glass view. It is available both on a web browser version and an application for iOS or Android. So really handy, certainly something that both you and your end user clients can use, log into. We'll go through some onboarding and get everybody set up in there. And typically we do a little bit of training with the client. Like I said, the portal is fairly easy to use, easy to intuit. But a really exciting project, and we really think this is going to help in the ecosystem. This is a starting phase. There's obviously other hardware manufacturers out there, other ways that we can offer this service and reach into the network for monitoring of hardware that maybe doesn't have a cloud management portal tied to it, like older Cisco gear. We'll take a look here at the next slide. So this is kind of a breakdown of all of the different modules that are built into this phase 1 beta. So obviously alerting is important. And keep in mind, we fully understand and realize that a portal doesn't replace the human interaction. This is just to augment our current set of services and really expand on our gold standard. Our engineering team is still there. And so we just want to make things a little bit easier. So by doing that, we went in and for device management, you do get that active or inactive status flag, red, green, a list of all the current devices in that account or that deployment. You can drill into the device details, see things like its MAC ID, its IP address, how much data it's used. Oftentimes, our clients our end users want to name their sites in a specific way for their deployment. So that information also pops up there. The locations, the IDs, and you can export out all of this information into a nice CSV file where you can manipulate data and you know, break things down even further, interact with the devices, reboot them, or like I talked about earlier, integrate an API. So you can actually, you know, build your a platform into Wireless Window that'll communicate with that as well. Under the account management module, we have, you know, kind of general account management. You can do your plan change requests through there and monitor that usage. Get a summary of all your orders. So as the clients order new hardware for their deployments, phase rollouts, all of that information appears for them right in Wireless Window. All of their order history, historical data is all there. And then we get into things like the billing management. Obviously, our services combine in that cross-carrier pooling, and so it's a consolidated bill. You can view those bills, break it down into multiple locations, payments, and billing history. Organizational management is essentially just the account details for the end user account setup. And they have the ability, or you on their behalf have the ability to go and create new users and set them up for different access levels. Maybe it's a billing person and they only need to see billing. Then they would just access the billing module and not be able to interact with devices. Or it's a technical person and they don't need to see billing. They need to interact with the device. So trying to make that more secure and more focused on the end user's roles. And then within Wireless Window, I mentioned you can submit you know, questions or issues, support tickets, and you can view both the status and responses to those tickets all within Wireless Window. It's all recorded in there. So pretty comprehensive for phase one. I'm really excited to get this out into the hands of the partner community and our end users, and get some constant, you know, feedback. Just because we think we've built something good, that doesn't really mean a whole lot until it's out in the hands of the people who are going to use it. So that feedback is going to be crucial for our forward development. Do I have one more slide here, Tom? I can't remember if we.
Yeah.
Nope. Okay. Perfect. Well, thank you very much for letting me talk about Wireless Window. It's near and dear to my heart, and great project. And thanks to the team over at Solutions, our sister company, for all the app development. It's been great. Looking forward to launching it.
Yeah, so Wireless Window is the next level of, I guess I would call this, Brad's sort of breaking away from the general pack. There's a lot of people who piled into the wireless space thinking it's easy. There's a lot of companies who have a small division selling wireless within a larger organization. The aggregators do it. But there's only one company who does this the way we do it all the time. And so it's sort of the difference between, do I want average or do I want to go to the specialist? If you want the specialist, that's where we're sitting. And all these different points that we're bringing up so far on only deploying Cat 6, only putting the right carrier out there, being able to see signal quality, making sure it interacts with all the applications, being able to go to Cat 18 routers, being able to bond two different carriers together, and then finally, you know, being able to manage the data and making it the right data pool for the right size and having insight, and then finally Wireless Window. If you add these all up on a scale and then you put on the other side a carrier or a provider who doesn't do any of these things, the difference starts to become pretty clear. And again, the overarching theme of this is what leads to people coming to BroadSky, staying with BroadSky, and continuing to roll out with BroadSky over time and making it boring. If you're jacked up about wireless, that's awesome. But if you want it to just be that boring thing that works for your customer and they're happy so you can move on, that's sort of the end goal for all of this. And so those are the points that go into it. And we're not done. On top of that, BroadSky is also selling POTS replacement. We're not going to put too much time into this because we did it on the last webinar, but I'll say this. If you haven't looked at POTS replacement and you don't see the POTS market as lucrative, take the opportunity to rethink that. The POTS market is exploding right now because the carriers are no longer supporting this. They want out of this business. They don't want to support their copper anymore. They're not making money on this anymore. And we're seeing all across the country that the carriers are actually filing to say, I'm no longer going to support that. And so we have developed it, and I'm no longer going to support it. I'm no longer going to deploy it. You can't order it. Two ramifications of that: either A, you order a copper line and it's not available, or B, you have a copper line that's been billing at $60 a month for the last 20 years, and everyone ignores it. And all of a sudden that bill goes to $170. And I've seen that in California and Illinois so far. What's driving that is the carriers want out, and they have to file with the FCC and then file with the local PUC to let them know this wire center is no longer going to offer POTS. And here's my deadline for that, and here's my timeline for that. And once it's gone, it's gone. The opportunity here is staggering. And what we've built is a marketing in a box sales tool, because we know it's a new product. And so it's the ability to actually do a drip marketing campaign for 3 target audiences, either your property building facility managers or businesses receiving notice of copper line retirement based on the FCC mandate, or your existing customer base. So this is going to roll geographically. And we have compiled a list of wire centers that are terminating now. If you reach out to your BroadSky channel manager, which I'll show you on the next slide who you're in your region it is, we'll get you the password for that. And also that gives you the ability to download this marketing in a box kit. It was put together by Mary Curry, our marketing director, and it is not BroadSky labeled. It is the ability for you to drop in your logo into it and market it as your own content. And so it really ups it's thousands of dollars of marketing we're offering for free that you can put into a campaign within your own organization. POTS is coming. If you haven't heard about this yet, you've heard about it for the first time now, but now that I've said it, you're going to hear about this over and over and over again. It's like SD-WAN in 2012 or CBD, which is a whole different thing. You never heard of CBD in your life, and all of a sudden everybody was talking about it 2 years later. POTS is going to be like that. The pain is coming, and people are going to want to move off of this as soon as possible. And so this is why we created this kit for that. So it's co-branded flyer. You drop in your own logo. So you see in the upper left-hand corner, partner logo goes there, your logo here, that kind of thing. It's a 3-part email campaign, including marketing tips. And essentially it's download, pick your email target audience, and hit send, and then wait for the phones to ring. If you're in a region where POTS retirement has been announced, the phones are going to ring. If, on the other hand, they haven't announced it yet and there's no sense of urgency around it, they'll probably wait through kind of probably 2020. But what's going to happen is companies who offer multi-site services across the country are going to feel the pain in one region, and they're going to say, well, wait a minute, if this is happening all over the place, why don't I just take care of this now? I'm just going to go ahead and roll out 400 of these at this point. Those are the opportunities that are eye-catching, but all of us need to get those first 10 or 20 under our belt so that you're experienced at it. And when they ask after it and say, look, have we done this before? Say, yeah, I've done 10 of these. It works great. That's where we always want to be when we're talking about a product to somebody, is it's new to them, but it's not new to us. So this marketing campaign helps get the ball started, and then BroadSky backs it up with the same quality measures that we've been talking about in all our other products. We bring to this product as well. So that's the marketing kit. Please contact your channel manager to get access to it, and also to the list of wire centers that are being retired. Okay, and who do you contact? These are the people you would contact. And while I have this on the screen, I want to mention there is a Q&A box in Zoom where you can type in any question you'd like to have answered. The way we do this at the end is we read the question for the benefit of everybody, and then we go ahead and give the answer. And questions can come in either on the Q&A side or on the chat side. I always start on the Q&A side, and then I move over to the chat side. And I've seen questions come in. Every question that's been asked is going to be answered. And as we move into that, and you hear the answer to the questions asked by other participants, and something occurs to you, please go ahead and follow up and ask on that. And we'll answer questions as long as we can. So in summary, this is all we do. We're really very quite good at this. You have to be good at it if it's all you do. This is not an adjunct, and we don't offer something in competition to other things. We just want to make the wireless and the POTS go. We want to make it boring, and we want to send the commission check to the master agent and make sure it gets passed on to you. And I've said this before, but I'll say it again. although it's not an endorsement by the master agents, and they don't pick winners per se, if you look at the top 10 distribution agencies in the country, all of them have distribution agent agreements with Broadsky. This is not a one, so the, you know, the biggest in this industry, well, we all know who the players are. I don't, if I start mentioning names, I'll inevitably forget somebody, and I don't want to do that. But the master that you're with is a company that's already doing business with Broadsky, and we're already sending checks to. So again, it's not an endorsement, but if you don't perform for these people, they don't let you stay. And we all know that. And so for 17 years, they've let us stay. Okay. Let's go ahead and move to questions. And I'm gonna start on the Q&A side, but if you put it in on the chat side, I move over to that second. And I'm looking forward to this. Okay, so Bob asked, video applications like news reporting, does Broadsky compete in that realm? You know, we actually, news reporting or live from the field is using wireless a lot. I actually set this up for ESPN 3 years ago. They were covering Ultimate Frisbee, of all things, and they would take our device on site and they would broadcast ESPN quality broadcast now. When the Frisbee site didn't have enough internet upload speed to support that production, then they would bring us on site and do that. And so yes, live sports is an opportunity. Roving reporter is an opportunity. Live trucks is an opportunity if they don't want to do satellite. These backpack kits are an opportunity as well. Okay. Glenn asked, can this equipment be used in a portable environment? Can this be used as a portable device for remote video transmission? Client does this with an Israeli. Yes. So portable video transmission or portable anything. We didn't spend a lot of time on this, but I alluded to it with the construction companies. They use it as a portable device all the time. So they put it into the construction trailer. They go on site for 6 months. They build what they're building, and then they pick up the trailer and move it to the next site. But when they get there, they already have internet. And so they sign a 3-year contract with us, fully well knowing that it's not going to be tied to one address. They're just going to use the service over a period of time. And what that does is it eliminates not being able to get service on time, and it also eliminates having your wire cut on the construction site while you're on site. And so they just use it to solve that problem. If you have any exposure to construction industry whatsoever, they are a lucrative market. They tend to use a fair amount of data because we're the only option. And so one site can easily generate $600 to $1,000 a month in revenues. And then you take that times 50 sites, and it starts to add up. And Lee asked, what will we need to do to get the marketing tool? Please reach out to your contact or your channel manager and get the username password for that. And then you'll have the marketing tool as well as the list of retiring wire centers. And those are the questions on the Q&A. I'm gonna move over to the chat side. Thomas asked, FCC has given customers 90 days to find an alternative when their pot signs are retired. Yes, I think that's more of a statement than a question, but yes, I think Thomas is chasing the statement I made earlier. Consumers, I believe, get 90 days notice and businesses get 180 days notice. But either way, this is in some senses, this is a salesperson's dream. You're walking in, selling a product. It's something they have to have, by the way. The pot signs that replace the fire alarms and the elevator lines cannot be moved to IP-based because IP-based do not pass fire marshal regulations. So it has to be a dedicated circuit to that. And it has to have its own power supply, so we ship a battery backup for that. And so they have to have it. The current service they're having is disappearing. And if you don't have it, you don't have a certificate of occupancy for your building. So you have a replacement product and a timeline and a deadline all wrapped into one, which is sort of a nice thing to have when you're talking to people, especially if it's a cost savings. If they're at $60 a month now, we're at 55, so that's not a big deal. But if they've seen their line go from $60 to $170, now they're even more motivated. POTS is a coming wave, guys. It just is. It's very lucrative. It's something we've ignored for years and years and years. All we've been doing is ripping out POTS lines and replacing them with VoIP, but the ones that are left are now an opportunity. There's still 10 million POTS lines out there that are run by businesses. And 10 million times $55 a month is an enormous number. If you can get 1% of that market, you will move into a different tax bracket. Let me say it like that. Mark said, I am ready to start on the Failover marketing a box. And who is my channel manager? I just saw the channel manager info. No need to provide, but I provided it anyway. So from a regional basis, please reach out to your, look at the state that you're in and reach out to that person. And they will get you there from here. Mo asked, is there a way to estimate how much data would be needed for any given business? In my case, a hotel looking for a secondary circuit. Great question. So for a primary circuit, we rule of thumb, say 2 to 5 gig per business user per month. And I say business user in the sense that they're doing email and they're accessing some corporate intranet or cloud environments, and they're generally doing their job. Here's the things that will become an outlier to that are video cameras, security cameras, and guest Wi-Fi. If you have those environments, let's really talk about that if we want to run that over the wireless or not. Generally speaking, security cameras are just, you never get your money back on that. And what I mean by that is the security camera streams to the cloud at all times and nobody's looking at it. That ends up costing $800 a month, and it's ridiculous. What you do instead is you record to a DVR on site. A 1 terabyte DVR costs $200, and then you enable what's called a live look-in feature, where you can just look in to see your live scene at any time, or you can come in and review event footage at any time. That brings the cost down to maybe $100, $150 a month, which is reasonable for a security camera in a high value environment. Guest Wi-Fi, once somebody comes in with their phone, they can do anything. Apple products in particular are very data hungry. They like to update iOS constantly, and they like to back up their pictures. And so you don't want to provide guest Wi-Fi over BroadSky as a general rule. The costs just get out of hand, and we're very cost conscious on this. So we highly recommend not doing it, honestly. There are very few scenarios where it makes sense. Maybe in a very transactional environment, we are hearing about banks deploying these because they want an air gap security solution. They want to provide guest Wi-Fi for people in the bank, but they don't want to let them onto the corporate banking network in any way, shape, or form. That might work because who's going to watch a movie in the bank lobby? But I still worry about those Apple backups a little bit. So let's talk about that. On a secondary basis, it shouldn't use much data at all. If you think about it, it shouldn't use much data at all because it's just secondary. And then flipping that around, if it does use a lot of data, that means that the primary circuit's down. And if the primary circuit's down, then we are keeping that business literally up and running. And so they will use more data in that period of time, but they'll have eliminated the problem of I don't have credit card and booking and a business. And so they'll be happy to go ahead and use that data amount for that period of time until the primary circuit is up and running again. Just one anecdote going back to banks, we have a banking customer that has 250 locations with us, and during the Houston, wasn't really a hurricane, but during the Houston amazing rainstorm of 1.5 years ago, the bank ran on us for a month. Everything flooded, and that bank branch stayed open on us, and by law, banks can't be closed more than 2 days in a row. People have to have access to their money. So we were literally the difference between them being open and closed, and also the difference between them being in compliance with regulations and out of compliance with regulations, because they were open, and their bank charter calls for that. They must be open. So that's one example of us delivering on an outage event, and did they use more data that month? Absolutely. Were they happy to do so? Absolutely. That was the whole point of having a backup structure. And then Mark asked, I would like a copy of the deck. And so to Mark and to everybody in this webinar will get a copy of this deck sent out to them post attendance. And then do you have clients in the medical market? Absolutely. This is a HIPAA compliant solution, Mark and everybody. This satisfies HIPAA, including the POT circuit, by the way, if they're doing HIPAA faxing. I don't know if that was the context of your question, but pharmacies, hospitals, medical still does a fair amount of faxing. And so the POTS replacement service can be used for fax, and it is HIPAA compliant. And then the data transmission is HIPAA compliant as well. That's been proven out in numerous medical facilities. So if you look at some of the regulatory environments that we're surrounded by, HIPAA governs medical, FINRA governs financial and ATM machines, and then PCI governs point of sale. We comply with all of those, and we have for years, and we can prove that out wherever it comes down to. So I guess we don't talk about that much, but not only is it quality, but it's quality with a regulatory checkbox next to it so that people don't get hung up on it. And this isn't an accident. This is because our clients demanded it over time, and we made sure that we met those regulations. Okay, that was the last chat question. And so I'm going to close that. And then I'm going to go back to Q&A to see if anyone put in any of that. Nope, nobody did. Okay. So that summarizes the Q&A, and therefore that summarizes the webinar for this month. If there's any questions, if you want to unmute, you have the ability to do that. And anyone on BroadSky, Maureen, did I miss anything, or would you like to announce anything that is important that should be known?
No, you did a great job.
Okay. Well, thank you everyone for joining this month's webinar, and please stay tuned for the announcement of next month's webinar topic, where we will be rolling out yet another reason and an idea set around how to make wireless a lucrative part of your ongoing agency commission stream. Thank you very much.